And I give him praise. He didn't forget about me. He has not forgotten about you. He is a good God. I know he's good because he's been polishing, he's been cleaning, and he's been shaping and forming me according to his perfect will. Do I not feel it? Of course I have. Was it on your mind as we go through the scripture? And when he him and bring him hither. My God. We have another subtitle, scripture to the subject at hand, found in John 12 and 13. On the next day, much people that were come to the feast, when they heard that Jesus was coming to Jerusalem, they took branches of palm trees and went forth to meet him and cried, Hosanna! Blessed is the name of the Lord. You may be seated in the presence of the Lord. To God be the glory. We're focusing on running it back. We're focusing on running it back so that we can reintroduce ourselves. And this text is identifying three of the following things: humility, victory, and triumph. All of them are connected and tied into one humble act. And this was a true act of humility. It was divine humility. What made it so humble is me envisioning how laid back it was and easy it was for the Lord to tell them to just go get him a coat. It doesn't add up in my average everyday mind because of all the animals and of all the things he could have summoned this is what he summoned. This is what he sent for. And we get caught up in our thought process. And I can imagine, because there are times I can admit wrong at fault. My husband, he will say, Keisha, woman of God, sometimes I think you hear me, but you're not listening. You know, and it bothers me, because I'm like, I hear you. And he knows I'm hearing him. But he's absolutely right, because he says you're not listening. I somehow had my hands on the additional set of keys for my truck. And of course, they were in my hands, which means we don't know where they are. He kept saying, woman of God, have you gotten that key made? I'm going. Woman of God, have you gotten that key made? I'm going. Woman of God, I'm doing that today. That's on my I'm doing it this morning. And it was on my agenda. My mornings just got pushed to afternoons to evenings, until I pulled into the car wash. I closed the door and didn't realize the key wasn't in the ignition. And I locked myself out. But this is when the wisdom of God is wiser than you. The immediate word of the Lord came to my remembrance. Woman of God, have you made that key? My God, that was the longest dial I've ever made on a cell phone in my life. I'm standing there waiting for it to ring. I don't know what took it so long. And when it did, in his calmness, he said, I was trying to insinuate, I think you need to call the AAA for me. And he was like, where are you? And that's what God does. He makes things make sense to us. Requiring of us. And it doesn't make sense to us. But by the Lord telling them that it had to be this one, they didn't exchange any words. My husband told me about that key. I didn't exchange any words. I just kept telling him I was going to go do it. To the event that it didn't get done in a particular time frame. But with him coming with that key, He made it outside of my knowing. He had taken my key and had already went and made a spare key without my knowing. That's what God is doing. That's what he's doing. We've got to stop sitting on things that God is sending us to do, because we're going to bring it back when we get ready. All of this was orchestrated. They had to go and they had to get back. Time was of essence because eternity was at stake. I don't want to get ahead of myself. This is the same thing that's taking place in our lives. Eternity is at stake. You think you have time to go do your mess. You think you have time to go do your junk. People need to know is if you look, at a picture of a dog, an animal has.